What up, everyone? Can people respond with yes or hello or something to say that you can actually see me? What up, Al? Lily? All right, welcome to my... Everyone want to see the snow? Wow, look at the snow. Can people hear me? Yeah, okay, thanks, Marlon. Right, you are getting to see my apartment that unfortunately has no furniture. So one day it might. All right, so I'm sitting on a floor. Sweet bachelor pad is empty apartment, dude. So depressingly empty apartment. All right, so here we go. Sweet bachelor pad, Jesus. No, it's heavy. Look how high it is. That's a good 6, 7 inches, I reckon. Maybe 6 inches, 7 inches. All right. Okay, enough of these silly comments. Okay, good. So there is that much up here in the Bronx. Yeah, exactly. All right. So I have not left the house all day. So I am thoroughly. I've only got the only food I have in the house was cornflakes and toast. So there we go, and tea. That's all. Okay, are we back? Woohoo! All right. Okay, here we go. So just I put my personal hotspot on. How about that? That's all we have to resort to. So let's pull up the slides. We're going to talk through. And I don't always love this talk only because it's a map of things that you could do, but will have to do. Whereas hard parts, I love doing JavaScript with the hard parts because it is, you take a bundle of knowledge away from it and you can use it. It is kind of complete. You still got to work on challenges, but it is complete in its nature. Whereas this talk, How to Get Hired as a Mid-Senior Software Engineer, is basically a list of tasks that you need to do. So it's like a sort of to-do list for you. So I come away feeling, what a wonderful to-do list, but now you got to go and get to do it. So that's the essence of this workshop. I want us to get to as fast as possible the interesting pieces where there's some actual unique insights. This is all stuff that's in the Codesmith program. And that means in the Codesmith program, it's like 25 hours worth of content around job search, but we're going to get a condensed version of it, which we'll make the most of, but it is not as, it's inherently a relatively frustrating talk, but at least useful, I hope. So let's see if we can screen share this. I think this is the right one to share. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that. There it is, great. So we don't need to see this stuff, but this is a cohort that actually is a good example. These techniques get you places. If I look at this cohort, top left-hand corner, Dan Chen, works at Walmart Labs. Guy in the middle there in the red polo, Dean Edwards, works at Walmart Labs. Cheng Li on the floor there in the white tee, works at Walmart Labs. Ed Guo in the back there in the blue pattern shirt, works at Walmart Labs. There's another one in there. So Sue at the front there, worked at Microsoft, now Expedia. George Norberg at the back there, he had unfortunately an illness for the last quite a while, but just got an offer today. Fantastic offer from Cornerstone on Demand for a senior dev role. So all of Julia there in the middle, She works at Air Maps drone company. All these people here are working in mid towards senior roles. Bottom left-hand corner there, Ty, he works at TD Ameritrade as a senior backend engineer. All of these people are working in mid or senior roles, and they all use these techniques. So these techniques do work. That's my background. The team that makes it possible. It isn't just me that instills these skills in people. It's also people like Eric and Haley. So Eric there at the top, he is a phenomenal guy. Residents of Codesmith get 2 lectures from him on salary negotiations and how to present themselves in interviews. And he's a phenomenal guide at how to negotiate. So for example, just a little shout out to George there in the top left-hand corner. George, his offer, I can't say the numbers, but his offer is way above the Codesmith average even. And he negotiated up another 15 to 20K, I think, with Eric's help. So Eric is the person who helps in negotiations. We can talk about negotiation strategy if people have questions about it. I know the things Eric says. I'm not as good at sharing them as Eric. That's Eric's specialty, but I do know the things that he says. I mean, many of you know what Codesmith is, but just know that we're going to talk a lot about the kind of projects that you should be building to elevate yourself above the standard bootcamp rigmarole. And they're the things you build at Codesmith, but they're things that you can build yourselves. If you look at these React Monocle, React Tide Overview, WebDSP, all of these are prominent tools in the developer community. And we're going to talk about how powerful those are for your job search. Nothing to say here. All right. Just in case we were interested, what do we look for in candidates for Codesmith? And by the way, this is really relevant for the talk. These are the things that companies look for in you: problem solving, technical communication, engineering approach and best practices, non-technical communication, and finally, your language in JavaScript and your computer science, or whatever it might be, whatever your language experience is. That's the least important of the puzzle. That's the least important of the puzzle. All right, hold on. My headphones ran out of batteries. Not quite. Okay, good. Our expectations, well, this is not particularly relevant in a remote workshop. Support each other. Don't be horrible on the internet. There we go. How to prepare for Codesmith? Well, we don't need to see this. Like hard parts, by the way. If you're ever trying to get into Codesmith, hard parts is the route. I know many people, if I look at the attendees on this, let's have a look. Let's look at the folk who are attending. Yeah, many of these folk here are hard parts people. I recognize a lot of these names. Hard parts is fun. I always enjoy giving it. Here we go. But this is a flash course, 30 minutes or an hour versus 1,000 hours you do in Codesmith. Holy shit. Okay, power programming, we don't need to talk about this because I'd love at this moment to go around and share each person what inspired them down this path, why they're trying to move into this path. But you know what? Put your name in, say yes if any person in this audience is willing to jump on. Oh no, it never works. I tried this in the past, it never works. Trying to get people to jump on the screen and say hi and what inspired them down this path. It never works, it's always a failure. All right, so we won't do that. We won't do that. We'll do something interactive a little bit later on though, I think. Okay, so as I say, it is an inspiring path and it's wonderful. The way I put it is this: normally when you want to have a role that is, let's say, secure, prestigious, maybe even financially rewarding, you have to sacrifice what you really want to do, which is be creative, be creatively fulfilled, feel challenged by your work, feel like you can make an impact. And suddenly there's this role out there that fuses these two together. And it's never existed before. You want to work before and make some secure financial position. You got to do finance, where I did it for 9 months, where ultimately you're probably not going to be as creatively fulfilled as you hoped. And then along comes this thing where you have to be creatively fulfilled, and it's intellectually challenging, and it's stimulating, and it's regarded as a prestigious path. It's a remarkable opportunity. So it is a very special time. We're very privileged to have this. Who knows how long it'll last? We're very privileged to have this. All right, so what makes an excellent software engineer? Left-hand side here are the underlying capacities. By the way, the very same things we look for in Codesmith candidates. The right-hand side here are the things that communicate these to the world, the person who's going to hire you. And unfortunately, to be a professional software engineer, you've got to have underlying capacities and you've got to make them translatable to somebody else who's going to hire you. And that's Frustrating, because these are very different skill sets. Those underlying capacities. Oh, thanks, Emmanuel. You can if you want. That's not a bad idea. Underlying capacities. Actually, what if I just squeeze this closed so I can see the comments? There we go. Yeah, that works. Underlying capacities, unfortunately, not the same as the skills that enable you to present those in interview. Interviewing and applying is a very specific and unfortunately different skill set in its own right. Let's talk about it first. To get yourself started, you've got to focus yourself in. So if you're already, down the path and got a mid-level developer job already, or you're a junior dev, you may have already started to do this process, but let's talk about it. 5 things that make an engineer, 5 things, those capacities on the left-hand side. 3 of them are universal. Problem solving, pretty damn universal. Technical communication, pretty damn universal. We'll talk about what that looks like, but it's essentially, can I take my internal mental model of how the code is working and make it accessible to others? They can come to understand what my internal overview of the code's execution actually is doing. It's why we do so much pair programming at Codesmith. It's why JavaScript, the hard parts workshops are all pair programmed, because it's this ability to turn my internal mental understanding of the code into something that is epistemically accessible to you. But that's universal. I don't care what type of job you're taking, what type of language you're working with, that's universal. Cultural fit. Now, different companies have different sort of cultures, but ultimately your non-technical communication, your cultural fit, your ability to connect with people is fairly universal as well. What isn't, and what requires you to kind of lock in a focus area, is your language, the frameworks you work with, the level of computer science knowledge you need, and then ultimately there are different roles that have different approaches, different kind of approaches to how you encounter problems and work through them, and your priorities. So a couple of different options. There's a whole bunch more than this, but here's some highlight ones. Software engineer in the web world, full stack JavaScript only, one subcategory. JavaScript front end plus a back end. Remember the front end and back end in web. The front end is the code you write that runs in the web browser when you open Twitter or you open Gmail, whereas the back end is the code you write that when you open Gmail, it sends a message to Google servers and says, hey, get that person's emails. Well, all that code is the back-end code. That could be written in a whole number of languages, but let's say Python, or it could be in a whole number of languages. Golang. There's two sort of ways of thinking about web engineering there. Software engineer non-web, this is typically more back-end work. Mobile engineer and data scientist. Okay. I'd add in machine learning engineer now as well as a major category. Let's look at software engineer web. Full stack JavaScript only. I actually disagree with my slide here. So I do agree with the core language or framework is Node and the core front-end language framework is React. There's obviously alternatives, Angular, Vue, but those are the core. Computer science level you require, I put 1 check mark, as opposed to 3 for the non-web backend software engineer in Java, C++. Yeah, and I put 2 for when your front end's Java, when your back end something like Python. Is it cutting out for folks? Michael says that it's cutting out. Is it cutting out for people? Oh, Corey's okay. Michael's shitty Brooklyn internet. All right, refresh the page. Mohammed, truly inspired advice. All right, so I'll come back to it. Good. Yeah. So I've put you need more computer science for the JavaScript front end, non-JavaScript back end. I think you need about the same. But I could argue if your back end's Python with something called multi-threading, then maybe or with more heavily OOP, object-oriented programming, maybe more classic computer science. We'll kind of come to what these computer science levels look like in a second. What I can say is that for web, your engineering approach is going to differ to if you're a back-end software engineer in the non-web world, the person working on the distributed infrastructure at Twitter in Java. So if you're a web world, you care about user experience. You care about server latency. You care about the render time. You also honestly care about thoughtful user experience in terms of, is that button going to be giving me a good feedback to the user so the user knows what that button's doing? You're going to care about that stuff. Code maintainability, but also nevertheless ship and iterate. That means you're going to throw stuff out. It may not always be perfect, but your team is going to throw it out, see what breaks, and then fix it. Versus, and this is not universal, but these are sort of the mindsets in this environment. It's a little bit more get an MVP out there, break it, it doesn't quite work, iterate. And that's because in the end, you're dealing with a user-facing often experience that where failure is not as dramatic as if you are working on a software engineer position on the non-web, where you are, for example, producing developing the optimal algorithm to retrieve the exact tweet that is being requested by the user on the web application for Twitter. You care profoundly about performance. That is everything to you. How can you ensure that that is the most optimized algorithm? And that's why the computer science portion is so much more significant, because it is all about algorithmic efficiency to get the very most out of your processing power. So these are different priorities. One is much, much more about performance. The other is much more about user experience, iterating, and product. We'll hold on mobile and data scientists, but again, data scientists, heavier computer science, not so much computer science as I'd say statistical science, mathematical. And it's about, and the approach though is very much more experimental. I want to get insights from my data. All right, there we go. But all this is to say, only 2 of the 5 things that make a great software engineer are language specific, are role specific. Everything else, problem solving, technical communication, and cultural fit, are universals. And that should be liberating to us. That should make us feel like we're not, hold on, I'm gonna take these headphones out. Is this working better? Everyone hear me now? Yay. Okay, but now my face is big. Okay, is that, there you go. All right, great, let's keep going. Let's keep moving. So just what the message from this is, identify your focus. You can't do all of these things. People sometimes say, should I learn Python and JavaScript and C++? And no. Identify your focus and figure out which one you're going to. We're going to focus ourselves here on the JavaScript full stack world. Couple of words on the things to focus on. JavaScript and Node. It is a very nice area to focus on. It powers modern web. You get to do the same backend. Node, if you look at this trend here, has blown up over the past few years. It's used in every single company. My message here is to say, once you've chosen your focus area, go and figure out the pieces that are required for that focus area. But remember, this is only 1/5 of the 5 capacities we said make a great software engineer. And it's very tempting to think, what will make me a great software engineer is I will learn all these technologies. That is 20% of why you get a 100K and above mid-level job. 20% is the language and framework knowledge. But you've got to go and identify them. I'm not going to give you the details of this. There's great videos online for all the stuff I need to know for JavaScript, all the stuff I need to know for Python. That's for you to go and figure out. In every role, in every interview process, there are computer science needs. You want to get a mid-level software engineering job in full stack JavaScript. Here's what I would say constitutes checkmark level 1. So sort of level 1 requirement of computer science. So this is not sufficient, I would argue, to get you into level 3
software engineer, non-web, C++ backend role where performance counts the whole time. This is, though, enough to definitely get you a full-stack JavaScript senior dev role. So you need to know algorithms, recursion, sort and search algorithms, some basic tree and graph algorithms. In system design, you need to be thinking about, have some understanding of compilation versus interpretation of code, some knowledge of how threading is working, or asynchronicity in JavaScript is handling an alternative to threading. You can have all these slides so you can see this list of stuff. I'm just going to name drop them for now. Some knowledge of how memory allocation is working. And by the way, there'll be many job offers people will get without ever doing any of these things. But there'll also be many where you do need to know this stuff. And then in data structures, know your big O notation. This is about saying, as I increase the number of inputs into my algorithm, into my function, as I increase the number of inputs, how rapidly does the number of processing steps increase? Is it sort of proportionate? Is it exponentially? Is it less than exponential, less than proportionate? Hash tables and collision handling. Know how hash tables work. They're very good for optimizing how we access and look up data. Linked lists. You definitely don't need to know AVL red black trees. I put that on once when I gave this talk at, what was I give it? Caltech. I gave this talk at Caltech to their computational physics PhDs who were looking to move into software engineering, and I wanted to make it sound a little bit more demanding for them, and that was what I put. You do not need to know AVL red black trees to get a JavaScript full stack role. Where do you grow in these areas? Honestly, now CSX. The CSX, the online Codesmith stuff, has a bunch of recursion challenges, and those are a lot of what you end up doing in the coding challenges and interviews. Yeah, actually, that's very good. It doesn't have sort and search algorithms. Other places I like are Interview Cake, Data Structures Introduction, very good. Interview Cake, really, really good. Free Code Camp's got some good stuff. Coursera, I guess. I wouldn't use it, but it like go-to, I guess, quite useful. All right, now we move on to stuff that's more interesting. Okay, everyone got that stuff. Oh, there's questions appearing. Let's see if there's questions we can answer now. Oh, all those people in the picture. Let's do a little portion, yeah. Is this being recorded? I only got 3 of your 5 capacities. Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, I think these get recorded automatically, so you can watch them afterwards. Are you going to send us the slides? Yeah, Mohammed, don't worry. I'll send out these slides. John says, what were the starting points and how long have they been working before they got to mid-senior? Now, dude, that's the whole is that I never want to be another boot camp which consistently produced junior devs earning 70 to 80K. The goal was always to set the bar to admission high, have all the free workshops to get you there, but then graduate people to the mid-level role and above. And I'd say only a quarter, fewer than a quarter get senior, but pretty much like 60 to 70% get mid-level, and maybe 10% get junior or don't get offers. You know, it happens. Or they get a junior that's a 90K and they count it as a junior, but I'll take a junior at 90K. That's not too bad. Yeah. Top question here from Malika. How much JavaScript do I need to know in order to get hired in this? Yeah, we'll come to that question, Malika, for sure later on. At this point, if you want to have questions, I would put them in the little chat bit. It's easy to see them there rather than the question area. So we'll put them in a little chat bit here, say something nice. And if you have any questions so far, certainly jump in with them. We can come back to them. All right, but now we're still talking about the underlying skill set you need. We haven't even moved on to yet how to present all this. Just because I want to get the foundations of the underlying capacities you need, let's remind ourselves this is the left-hand side here, the capacities. Okay. Now we're starting to hint at how to present them, but here it is, a set of stories and portfolio projects and code. What this means, people, is you've been told by your junior bootcamp that, put together a nice portfolio with pictures of projects you've worked on or examples of code work. That is not what gets you an engineering job. If you're going for a design job, a UI design, like a designer job, that's really important. I want to see the things you design. I want to see your eye for design. But if you're going for an engineering job, I want to see a portfolio of stories, a portfolio of stories, of narratives, not actually necessarily a portfolio of projects. Most of the time, software engineers, they ain't showing code bases in interviews. They're telling narratives about technical decisions they've made in their engineering work. So how do you develop those sort of sophisticated narratives? Well, it's things like, how did I choose between using React and Angular? Have you worked with React? Yeah, well, we had this issue. We had to refactor a code base that was built in jQuery with React. And the reason we did it in the end was jQuery just became, super flexible. We needed to be more restrictive. And React's one-way data flow, yeah, it felt like a pain in the ass to define all our methods on a top-level component and have to pass them down. But man, did I know where my data was changing? Whenever I changed my data, did I know where that change was coming from? Yes, I did. And that restriction on me made the developer team more effective. That's a smart engineering decision you made. That's a mature decision you made. That's a narrative. And that is what you need. So what should your narratives be? Especially if you're somebody who hasn't had a job before as a software engineer. How the hell do you get narrative? Well, you build projects. Okay, fine. That makes sense. But what sort of projects? And here's the issue. Here is the issue. Projects that you build, typically full stack apps, are problematic. So we have in Codesmith the 4 weeks from week 7 through 10, 7, 8, 9, 10, those 4 weeks. Residents spend the week before those 4 weeks ideating on building a project that must push into groundbreaking areas of software engineering. They do this by researching what are the new challenging areas that engineers are facing. And then they build things typically that are developer tools, developer libraries and developer, services. Things like Reactide. Reactide has 8,000 GitHub stars. It is the most popular IDE developer tool for building React applications. Right now in the New York senior cohort, their projects include a Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is a tool built by Google originally if you've heard of something called microservices. There's a way of thinking about your application development as a team as little mini servers, each handling a different task almost often, very, very isolated tasks, and then have them all interact with each other. Well, that means if one breaks or I want to replace one, it's very easy to do so. Now, the way we handle that in an environment, a deployed environment, that means when it's on the internet, is using having each of those little services wrapped up in something called a Docker container. A container kind of contains them, and the tool that does that is called Docker. Docker's a major company, and now to coordinate all those containers, you use something called Kubernetes. But that's all designed to be when it's all hosted in the cloud on AWS. But you've got to develop on your local machine, on your local computer. So to communicate between the version on the cloud and on your local computer can be really complicated as a developer. And so project group made up of Sarah, Heacock, Frank, and Jared, those three are building a tool that lets you effortlessly make those two versions, a deployed version across all these different containers run with Kubernetes and your local machine version where you're actually coding it, completely consistent. And then visualize the activity between all these different services you develop. This is profound. They're building that in the second half of the program. When you have that sort of level of legitimacy, that gives you such a level of legitimacy. There was a guy who got turned down by Google who made Homebrew, that tool that you use to install packages in Ruby. And there was an uproar online. I mean, you wanted there to be uproar online because you built something that developers are all using, and they're like, hold on, I'm using their tool, and you didn't hire them? You want that. Now, it's not about showing off the tool, that's nice, but it's more about the stories you get from building things at that level of advancement. When you're building the tool that lets other people build their React application, you are of a different level. You're a higher order developer, producing tools other developers use, like a higher order function. You're of a higher order, and that really stands people out. It's the secret of Codesmith. Now, I wonder why no other program starts doing this, encouraging people to do it. I'll tell you the reason why. It's really hard to do this. It requires pushing yourself into whole new areas, and that can be demanding for people. People get pretty stressed by that. In other programs, you steadily get to be more and more secure with every last thing that you were introduced to in the curriculum by building projects on it. In Codesmith, you go way beyond the core curriculum in order that you're always struggling. in order that you're pushing beyond the limits. But that's very stressful. But you can do it. You find a bunch of friends on here tonight, or you find a bunch of friends in hard parts, and just start hanging out weekly, working on building tools for developers, not pretend user-facing apps. Because the reason that the user-facing apps are bad is you go into job search. Firstly, every company looks and goes, ah, yeah, another bootcamp grad who built a full-stack app. And they also think that the reason they don't take them seriously is that until you have users, full-stack apps aren't actually hard to build. Of course they're hard. I know they're hard. I find it hard to build. But seasoned developers don't view them as hard. They're like, nah. You didn't even get around to implementing the forgot your password button because you didn't have any users. And the hardest bit's implementing the forgot your password button. So it's all a bit fake and hypothetical until you have real users. And okay, so you say, well, I'll get real users for my app. But the problem is you don't want to get a growth hacking job or a marketing job. You want to get a software engineering job. So it's not on you to get the users. So it's just all problematic when the projects you build are full stack apps. Don't get me wrong, you've got to do them. But if you want to elevate yourself above, build tools for developers, build libraries for developers, and you will blow away your interviewers. You will stand, just imagine you walk into an interview and you've built a library of code, like a famous libraries like jQuery or underscore. You've built one that they can see on GitHub and that other developers are using. That just stands you out so much. Anyway, there we go. And it gives you a bunch of cool stories. They're going to ask you things like toughest engineering challenge, interesting teams you worked on. I hope that gives you a sense, though, of what can stand you out is a bunch of narratives around that stuff. Any questions on that, folk? Throw them in. All right, let's keep going. Now we start talking about how to present all this stuff in the job search. So we're going to talk job search strategy, interviewing, whiteboarding, resume and narrative, ability to navigate heuristics. We literally have probably 8 to 10 lectures on this stuff in Codesmith. The things I teach at Codesmith, 3 things. 1, problem solving and technical communication with the core under the hood JavaScript content. That's OOP, that's closure, that sort of stuff. 2, guiding the project choice, the production project choice, to make sure people do things that push them into groundbreaking areas. I will never give ideas, but we sign off every single project idea. And 3, hiring, because it's still the one bit where, I don't know what I do. I suppose I like that bit. So this is my area, but it's like 8 lectures from me. So we're trying to condense that down to about 30 minutes. So here we go. Part 1, identify your technical lineage. This means going through every last thing you've done. I'm actually going to pull up a bunch of resumes. This means going through every last thing you've ever done in your career, and identifying every technical thing you did in that role. So it doesn't matter if you were the most amazing VP of finance at Goldman. It doesn't matter if you were an amazing VP of finance at Goldman. Everyone thought you were incredible. And you managed $500 million annually. You will never, well, I'm just trying to find a whole bunch of resumes. You will never be sharing that. Well, I'm trying to find a whole bunch of resumes so we can see more of them. Your bullet points will not say manage $500 million asset fund at Goldman. Instead, your bullets will say that one day, who knows when it was, that one morning that you automated some data collection with Python. That one morning that you automated data collection with Python, that is your first bullet. Used object, or I suppose by definition object-oriented, but whatever. Use object-oriented Python to collect or to develop summary statistics, or to collect summary statistics, or develop summary statistics of, I don't know, large asset prices across multiple, I don't know, funds, whatever it might be. That is your bullet. If you did it for one morning, we'll come to a whole bunch of these. I really do like these examples. Let me just pull up a whole bunch of them. Where am I going to find them? Hold on. Can you send me the resume resume booklet ASAP trying to use in talk. The one with the last 8 cohorts of resumes. Okay. All right. But let's look at this as an example of Ed Surtee. So let's look through what he does. So his prior role was a researcher in laboratory of transport phenomena. You know that he was doing amazing research there. But what are his bullets? They're the things that would have been in the footnotes of his research there, but they are all his bullets here. Wrote MATLAB scripts to calculate effective droplet. Okay. Use Python to dynamically parse and standardize over 800 test programs. That would have been the footnote. That's the bullet. All the ground, I don't care what he did. I don't care if he, got published in journal XYZ. It ain't relevant. All the way someone reads your resume is they look through for the density of technical content, the density of software engineering content. And that's what must make up every single bullet. And then there at the top, every single bullet ideally must follow this structure: how, what, and why. And by the way, this resume is not as good as it could be, but they should follow how, what, why. That is to say, they must say something like, why did you do this thing? So this bullet doesn't say it, but architected algorithm embedding terminal emulator inside child process, cutting CPU use by orders of magnitude. How, what, why. Created D3 visualization of directory tree and Git status in current working directory and embedded terminal. We've got better examples of this. Hopefully I'm going to get some better examples in a second. I'm going to get some better examples. Resume booklets. Aha. Here we go. This is a good one. Yeah, this will do. All right, so we're going to screen share these for a second so we can see some examples of resumes. So I really always shout out, by the way, I always shouted out a couple of coding boot camps, particularly full stack. And then I saw the resumes, man. It's so important to think differently about how resumes are written. They have to present you in a seasoned way. So let's screen share. How do I screen share? Hold on. Will this? I hope this doesn't end the video. It doesn't. Okay, good. So I'm going to share now this little guy here. Here we go. So everyone can see that. All right, there we go. So this is from hiring day. So at the end of the program, there's a hiring day where all the grads meet all these companies. But let's see. So here's somebody. This guy went through General Assembly the year before Codesmith. And let's see how he writes up what he did. So he was a search engine evaluator. Whew. Who knows what that is? Performs sentiment analysis and data annotations. Okay, sounds nice. Technical. Aha. He was a music supervision assistant. And what bullets do we have? Only the fact that he contributed to the company website front end. Created keyboard macro script to enter music. All technical pieces. And he's really struggling there, right? To try and find stuff that is legit technical. Yeah, Batul was a math teacher, introduced algorithmic solutions to aid you. All of these things, trying to find the technical piece of your prior non-technical experience. This person did some data work, queried, summarized, and visualized data for all requests to Postgres database. Let's find another one. Leverage VBA macros. Utilize VBA scripting. This guy got a senior dev role with no technical prior software engineer. He's a marketing project manager. But you've got to find in your prior experience every last thing you did that was technical. Doug here. Utilize proprietary Excel-based tools to automate various calculations. Integrated cloud-based tracking system. Analyze you. All of these things are finding the technical components of your prior experience. Okay, this is a crucial skill that you have to develop in building your resume out. Questions people have on resume development. Actually, there's something else I'll add. If you look at their bullet points, let's look at their individual bullet points on their So on their production projects, this is their production project, computer vision web app using WebAssembly. This was featured by Google in one of their Chrome conferences. So that was pretty cool. And if you look at how he writes the bullets, rebuilt, functionally bound, and transpiled the popular C++ library OpenCV into 3 different JavaScript interpretable formats. Modularized, like deployed Amazon bucket with secure certification, enabling Navigator API and subsequent use. How, what, why? Every single bullet must be how, what, why. Built Babel plugin that needs to be written more carefully. Injected communication initialization script into inspector window, allowing data to be sent from the Angular application to the ng-pulse dev tool. Every single bullet. You do not want to have bullets that say stuff like built web app with Node/React/AWS. The reason being, that could describe someone who built that for 1 million users, or describe someone who built it from a tutorial of Scotch.io. I can't tell the difference. Whereas the way people read through resumes, they read down, they look for key terms like React, and they look either side of them for, is this sophisticated use of React? Is the stuff around these words important, are they like legit words around the word React? Or is it vague and kind of indistinguishable from someone who's done this, you know, as a tutorial? All right, let's get back to our slides. Please put questions in if you have them. All right, now we move to job search pipeline. So this is how you do your job search. You've got to apply to 20 per week, 3 per day. In order of the power of these outreach, at the top is a direct referral by an engineer on the team. Then a referral by a non-engineer on the team. Then a referral by someone who knows someone on the team. So you sort of ask me and say, hey, Will, would you mind introducing me to the person you know on that team? But in the end, you get down to what's called cold outreach. The most important cold outreach is where you don't know the person, no introduction. The most important is AngelList, direct message, and then cold website application, and then you want to get some inbound. Let's keep going. So there's some tricks about how you do outreach. One is you must never send an application without doing what's called the double down email. The double down email is where you additionally find an email address of somebody at the company and you message them saying, hey, just want to give you a heads up, I applied for the role. The next piece is 4 days later, you must send a message, a follow-up message saying, just checking in if you got my application, basically. We can't go into too much detail on that, we don't have time, but let's talk a bit about, we will talk a bit about what those outreach messages must look like. They are really, really, really important, and how you do them is a very special skill. In the program, we workshop your outreach messages, and they are not the way you think they might be. They're not a dry, dear sir, madam, or hi there, my name is Will. I would like to apply for your software engineering job. Your job is to come across in the email like you're just so busy being a great software engineer. You're so busy working full-time as a software engineer, but you managed to squeeze in this little message you're going to send to them because you were so enamored by the specific thing they're doing that you managed to squeeze it in between being such a busy software engineer. It's a very special tone you've got to come up with. Know that if you're converting fewer than 20% of your outreach to phone screen, you're doing something wrong. Everybody. I don't care if you've never written a line of, well, I don't care if you've never had a professional software engineering job, you didn't get a degree, you can still get a 20% conversion rate to phone screen if you're doing all the right things. If your online profiles directly match this resume style, if you are reaching out in the right ways, and if you're using the right messaging, you can convert at 20%. We're going to talk about what those messages look like. From phone screens, you should be converting to on-site at about a 50% rate. In other words, 20 outreach will convert to whatever 20% of 20 outreach would be, so 4 would convert to 2 on-sites. Now, how you go from the rate of on-sites to offers is a bit funny, because whereas they will take every person who's good enough from phone screen to on-site, they won't necessarily take every person from on-site to offer, right? They've got 1 offer to make. So it really isn't as much your fault. You can get 4 on-sites turned down in a row without it necessarily being that you did something wrong. They're a bit like that. It's unfair, but that is how it is. Okay, so let's talk about outreach messages. Let's talk about outreach messages. Okay, here's one. Hi, Callie. The front-end dev role in React NFL caught my eye. I really appreciate how early you took on React in the team. I've kept tabs since around 2014, so I'll be fascinated to hear how you scaled it over time. I actually spoke at SoCal React on optimizing systems at scale with Webpack a week ago. Most of my work day to day is in React, Redux Node architecture with specialization in the broader Flux paradigm. Anyway, I'll be happy to talk more about the challenges you guys are working on if you're still looking for the role. I'm available Wednesday afternoon next week, or let me know a good time that works for you. This is a fucking this is a masterful email, which, given I wrote it, is actually a douchey thing to say. So I apologize. Yeah, that was just a douchey thing to say. All right, never mind. Haha, indeed. All right. Well, whatever. So let's talk about what we like about this email. So this is where it's nice to have people in person, because we can actually shout. Either post in what you like. Post in what you like about this email while I quickly make a cup of tea. Actually, I don't like a cup of tea. So people write in a couple of things. What do you notice about this email that maybe it's different to what you'd expect even? What do you notice about this email? Literally just write 2 or 3 words that capture what you notice distinct. Shows interest in specific technical aspects, feels barely squeezed in, not overly formal. You initiate a discussion, nice. You're interested in what they're doing. Yeah, how you scaled it about the discussion. Doesn't come across as needy. Marlon, absolutely. That is exactly it. There's not the please. It is so easy to write this with this tone. Please, sir. Please, mom. Give me a job, please. I just want a job. Just, please, job. Just job. Any job, please. Very easy to come across like that in your application, in your messages. You have to come across as I say, I'm so busy. I ain't got time to write these messages. But it seems like a message to a peer. Yeah, you're a legit equal. I'm going to go through it. So, yeah, caught my eye, casual style. Not please, sir, I saw the job, sir. Please, mom, I saw the job, mom. It's a casual style. So front end dev role, I didn't even say dev role. Like, that was conscious, casual. Caught my eye. Now, then it has an in. You must have an in. The problem, now the ideal in is someone says to you, the ideal in is somebody says, oh yeah, you should speak to Callie, and that person is like, I don't know, your friend or whatever. That's the ideal in. But we don't have that in, do we? So finding some in that is more than just I read the job description and it said needs view, job requires view, or we are a company that does, I don't know, food delivery. I really like food and I like it to be delivered. So I was wanted to reach out about your job. Like, that's not an in. It's got to be an in that requires. Online is really hard. Online is really hard to show that credibility, because there's no cost to sending out an auto message. The only way to develop credibility is to show you put effort in. Now, on the other hand, you can't put so much effort in that it looks like you're needy. So the balance is a very, very specific thing that you spotted that is legit. That gives you an in. So here, yeah, I know they use React since early on, because the guy who runs React is one of our advisory board members, and he used to go down there when React was first starting out in 2014. So I know they use it from very early on. So that's kind of an in, actually. And then look at that link, and then so find an in, and then link casually to your legit experience. Now, not like, I think I would be good for the role because, no. You've got to link it in a super casual, low-key way. I actually spoke. That word actually is intentional. It's like to say, I actually spoke last week and so every single Codesmith student is required to speak at the various meetups and conferences we hold, so that they can have this one line. So that in all their outreach messages, they can say, I actually spoke at SoCal React, New York node, so that they can drop that line in on that. So they're a credible authority, not, anyway. Yeah, so they want to do that. And you can do as well. People are desperate for meetup speakers. Go ask any meetup, they'll happily have you speak. But it gives you a casual, low-key way to link to you as a credible candidate. Okay, now next paragraph does 2 things, that first sentence. A, you have to name drop core technologies. This applies to your LinkedIn bio as well, all these areas. You've got to name drop, but never leave it at that. You've got to name drop core technology while also name dropping something super advanced. The way to name drop the core technology is to do it in a kind of like, my day-to-day works in whatever their thing is. My day-to-day works in React, Redux, Node, but my real passion is in insert advanced area. And that advanced area does not mean, machine learning. That's not an advanced area. That's an entire field. It does not mean, it's got to be an advanced area probably within the core stack. So broader Flux paradigm. Flux is the paradigm of thinking about state management, data management that Redux builds upon. So you're a specialist in the paradigm on which Redux is built, or whatever it might be, but I specialize in RESTful API alternatives, particularly GraphQL. Something that elevates you above. They call it the T-shaped developer. You're solid across the board, but you have an expertise, the stem of the T, in some particular area. And that kind of makes you much more credible than I code in React, Redux, and Node. No. That's my assumed bit. That's my, I do that bit, but I'm actually more of an authority in this bit. And that means the reader sees that as being, they assume you're better in the easier stuff because you're an authority in an advanced area. Anyway, casual. Anyway, I'd be happy to talk about more challenges you're working. Yeah, look at that. I'll be happy to offer you value. Talk about the challenges you're working on, not do you still have, but still making it clear that you're looking for the job. And then a direct call to action, both specific time, but also flexibility. I'm available Wednesday afternoon, or let me know what time's good for you. And at the bottom, if you notice the signature, you're not attaching resume. Attaching resume is kind of needy, but look at that. You still got the link to the resume. And that would be hosted on Dropbox as a PDF or something like that. All right, people. It can never be more than 100 words. I hope this isn't more than 100 words. I don't think it is. I think it's probably about, maybe it's exactly 100, something like that. Yeah, maximum 120 very rarely. But really it should be 80 to 120, I guess 100 being the right number. Questions on this outreach message? If you apply an AngelList, you're going to have the little box that says write message. You're going to add this message there. If you don't know the person's name, usually the person's name's given, you go to hi there. If you then do the double up emails, you apply an AngelList with this message, and then you find somebody's email, you then send them a message saying, hi, Jenny, just wanted to let you know I applied on AngelList. Gave my full details there, but just so you get a chance to see it, what I shared there was that the front-end dev role caught my eye. I noted, I shared across there that it's actually really interesting. And then you sort of do a little bit of rewording of the opening paragraph, but it basically, you can copy and paste the whole thing across to your double up email. Nobody minds. They understand. They understand. All right. There you go. That's messaging. That is outreach messaging. And in Codesmith, we sit and everybody writes their outreach message, and then we live iterate on them to make them effective. Okay, what are we on to next? Job search is a process of iteration. Yeah, this is important. Those are 100 topics you could answer questions on. You're confident on 20 of them. Okay, fine. The gray squares, there are things that you would do well on the job, but that without polish, you won't do well on an interview. Your job in the interview process is to interview again and again and again to turn as many of those gray squares where you're unpolished into green. And the only way to know how to turn them into green, that is where you're polished on them. In other words, you can present them well in an interview, which is a different skill to be able to do them well in a job. If you were asked to do them in a job, the only way you can do that is by interviewing. So you feel in your gut when you don't have that skill down, that ability to present the thing you get asked down. Note, this is also why certain people get offers really fast. Out of Codesmith, for example, because they're really good storytellers, and really passionate storytellers guide people towards the green squares. Not sort of cynically. They just, they're passionate. Oh, I've got to tell you about what I did with SQL. And the interview ends up being led by them. But that's fine if you don't have that. It's still a good skill to have. It's fine if you don't have that. But your job is, whenever you get asked an area where you're not polished on it, to go and spend the following day building, experimenting, and making yourself polished on it. I can think of the example of Kevin Key, who got an offer on the Friday after graduating. On the Wednesday, he bombed an interview on SQL. Spent the whole Thursday diving deep on SQL. On the Friday, what do you know? He gets asked SQL, but he only talks about SQL. And he gets an offer as he's walking to the parking lot from STEM. But there's a reason he ended up only talking about SQL, because it was on his mind. He was passionate about it. And that iterative process is vital. So what determines your rate of growth? Your interview effectiveness starts off at hiring day at Codesmith, really crappy. By the end, you grow. Each dot is an interview. You grow after each interview in terms of how you respond to it. How do you grow fastest? Well, firstly, you might think you respond to feedback. Problem is, feedback is not directly useful. They always say the same thing, not enough experience. But that has three meanings. One is legit. One is basically trying to make you not feel bad. And one is incredibly empowering. So the legit one is when you are applying for a job that requires management experience or probably architectural, like system architecture experience. Probably you literally do have need to have been on the job for X number of years. Okay, fair enough. I get that. That is literally you do not have enough experience. Reason two, they say do not have enough experience, is actually nothing to do with experience. They didn't click with you, or you were a bit low key, or they just have a weird culture and you weren't right for their culture. No one wants to tell you, I didn't really click with you. So everybody uses the excuse, not enough experience. I promise you, we do it ourselves for our non-technical roles, because we don't want to tell somebody, yeah, honestly, we have a very selective culture and it's just not, you didn't quite fit. That's not fair even. It's on us as much as on them. So that's a useless meaning of not enough experience. And the third reason, yeah, thanks, man. The third reason is that they ask you 10 questions, 10 areas, and you can only answer 2 of them. That's the most empowering meaning of not enough experience I've ever seen. That means go and get better at presenting those other 8 areas. And suddenly, 3 days later, you present them better. You have enough experience now. How remarkable. What a remarkable meaning of experience that is. I love that in this space, we're empowered by the not enough experience. It is literally, we asked you X number of questions, you couldn't answer enough of them well, but go and answer them better. Go and spend and that sounds obvious, actually super hard to do. And it's really the reason why Codesmith is so hard, is because the second half of the program, when you're building that production project, you're constantly encountering new stuff and struggling. It means you get really damn good at struggling, but it's really tiring. And that's really the point of Codesmith. In the job search, you're so good at struggling that you never forget how to do it. You never forget how to do it because, hold on, I'm just going to get my charger. Because you've struggled so damn much. All right. So, yeah. Other ways to grow. Yeah, note down all questions. These are all good techniques for growing in your job search. Okay. And by the way, we're going to come to the questions that have been asked by others, and please do throw more in if you have them in a moment. All right. Types of interview questions. Technical stories, things like, have you worked with React? Now, you may think, no, why would you use React? You might think that's a knowledge question. It sort of is, but it also should be described as a narrative question. It should be, well, the reason I chose React in this project. Then there's knowledge questions, then there's whiteboarding or coding challenge questions. Now, this is where we usually, in person, we actually get on a whiteboard and we have an example of somebody whiteboarding well and somebody whiteboarding not well. Start off with something like whiteboarding not well, then someone whiteboarding well. Through a coding challenge. And the one we usually do is, I don't know what we do. Don't reverse the string. What do we do? Return unique character. So there'll be like a string where every character is, return double character. There'll be a string, a word, a phrase where every character is singular, one instance of it, except one which has 2 instances. And then the challenge is to go through and return out the doubled character. That's right. No, sorry. Oh. No, it's a unique character. That's right. Every character, there's two of them, and just return out the only one that's got, or multiple of them, and return out the only character that has one. Something like that. I can't remember. And we do it on the whiteboard, and we all give feedback. Someone does a really bad job, not pretending to be. Pretending to do a really bad job, someone does a really good job. And we give feedback, and we see the comparison. I mean, literally, we can't do that, right? There's no way we can do that here. We don't have a whiteboard. Yeah, which is a shame. So we'll do this workshop again in 2 or 3 weeks in person. Hopefully by then, no snow. And we will have the whiteboard live at that point. For now, yeah, man, I think we're going to have to just keep it shorter and now turn to any final questions that everyone has. I'm really sorry. We can't do the pair whiteboarding. Oh, yeah, and then we do as pairs. Every person in the room is paired up, and you start whiteboarding through a coding challenge. And we do a really good a fun one like rotate grid, which is spinning a matrix 90 degrees. Really cool one. Fibonacci, either a recursive or an iterative solution. Everyone does them in pairs on the whiteboards around the office. But ultimately, we can't do that, unfortunately, because we are online. We are, by the way, doing a new program, a 2-week evening and Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday evening, Saturday, live online program, whose goal is calling it CS Prep, stupid name. I think of a different name, but it's there for people who want to get into Codesmith. It's there for people who finished coding boot camps and want to polish up on deep JavaScript under the hood and algorithm recursion. And it's also the people who just want to go straight for a junior dev job. Probably couldn't get a mid-level dev job out of it, but a junior dev job, and want to, again, get really good on closures, function execution in JavaScript, advanced higher order functions, so functional programming concepts, recursion, big O notation, algorithms, technical communication, all bundled up in a 2-week live online program. The first cohort will be April 16th, and we're only choosing 10 people for it. There's scholarships, it's very selective, but the goal of, but the point is, that's going to be live online with whiteboard, because we're going to buy one of those iPad Pros so you can like link it all in. It's all going to be proper. So we'll be able to do this in the future, but for now, I guess we can't. So, all right. Let's just do questions. A couple of notes. Give yourself time and not too much time. You do need to get better, but you get better by, you develop your syllabus of things to work on by interviewing. That's when you spot what you need to work on. And code some more. Good. Good luck. There you go. That same cohort, all of who did so well. They really did. They really were standout, that lot. Very, very talented. All right, so questions, folk. I'm sorry we can't do the live whiteboarding. That's probably the highlight, unfortunately. Oh, well. We'll do it in person at some point. Folk, questions. I only have one question on here that I haven't answered, so please, people, come up with questions. How much JavaScript do I need to know in order to get hired in this field, or at least be good enough? Angular, React. Yeah. I mean, I know literally how much you need to know, in the sense that it's the Codesmith curriculum, but because that's the goal of the Codesmith curriculum, is get you to mid-senior role. So I literally know exactly how much you need to know, but the challenge, of course, is to capture that in a simple answer. Well, I sort of did start to answer this. Let's go back to those slides where I gave you a bit of an overview of this. Okay, so yeah, you need to know core JavaScript principles. I'd list off all the stuff in hard parts: closure, high order functions, how JavaScript executes, execution context, memory, thread, asynchronous JavaScript, that's JavaScript hard parts part 3, OOP, object-oriented JavaScript with prototype chain, that's part 4, recursion, that's hard parts part 5. Now, the new season of hard parts is going to come out in May, which is promises, async await, iterators and generators. Those would be pretty comprehensive overview of all of the core principles of JavaScript you have to know to get a mid-level role. Then you need to know a framework or some sort of paradigm. Well, the standard one right now is React plus Redux, and on the back end, Node plus some application layer, some web application layer like Express. React plus Redux. Then also, honestly, if you want to get the front end oriented, you've got to actually have your CSS principles down. We didn't teach CSS in the program, so I always thought you could just go and search any individual challenge and solve it. I would argue there's now enough principles of CSS that you need to actually think about it deeper. So that's things like UI grid or CSS grid. That's things like CSS variables. That's things like flexbox in CSS. In React, yeah, it's not about technical knowledge alone. So what I would say to you, who was it who asked? Yeah, Malika. What I'd say to you is, yeah, no React Redux. If you can do an entire Scotch.io tutorial in a sense, you know React, but it's not about that. It's about that being only 20% of what it takes to be a software engineer and get a job, is the technical knowledge. The other 80% is non-technical communication, technical communication, problem solving, and your approach to engineering, debugging, reading documentation, all that sort of stuff. Because that's what predicts your growth in the technical knowledge. Those four will be the direct predictors of how fast you grow in technical knowledge. So, yeah, that's sort of what I get at. Yeah, that's what I get at, honestly, Malika, is that it is a sense of, yeah, React Redux, fine. But it's not a technical book. It's not like a Cisco, it's not like getting a Cisco networking certification where you go and learn a list of rules. It is a set of tools that you need to have the versatility and problem-solving ability to apply to any distinct new situation. And that's the difference. That's where you've got to recognize that to get a mid-level role, you're not really about technical knowledge. You can watch 100 tutorials on React and you'd never get a mid-level role. You've got to become someone who is experienced at wielding anything, could be jQuery, but probably React, to solve actual problems. That's the secret. So just don't lose sight of, it's not about technical knowledge per se, it is, but that's only a fifth. And that needs to be wielded to solve actual problems. I hope that does answer the question, Malika. But yeah, do choose a main framework to dive deep on and know the JavaScript stuff under the hood. Basically, all the CSX content. You go do CSX, the online, go to whatever it's called, csx.codesmith.io, and go work through all that content. That's a lot of the core JavaScript content you need to know for mid-level interviews. All right. What were their starting points? We did that for John. Is this being recorded? Yeah, I think by default it's recorded. You just have to come back to this. Come back to this link after it ends, and it'll be a recorded version. Slides. What can I do as a current college student to get an internship in this field? Very interesting. So this, Mohammed, I would say, if your degree is computer science, this is a funny one, man. So I'm not as authoritative on this. I've given this talk at Harvard undergrad, UCLA undergrad, Yale undergrad, and it's not the best talk for that audience because there is a very distinct process for getting internships with the large companies for CS undergrads. Computer science undergrads, there's a very distinct process. They are looking for very certain things, specific things. They're looking basically to assess you on the kind of material you're learning in your degree, which is very different. I'm talking larger companies here, JP Morgan's undergrad internship for computer science, Aetna Insurance, Facebook, Google, Amazon, they have very strict processes around what they're looking for in their undergrad. So I don't want to guide, that is not the audience. Our goal at Codesmith is to get people professional, full-time, mid or senior level software engineering roles. And yeah, some people do drop out of college to do Codesmith, but it's a small number. I'd say fewer than 10% of people at Codesmith are people under 22. Everyone else is 22 and above. And so that's the world I know really well. So internships, what can you do? Get your algorithm stuff done. Now, if you're looking instead for internships with startups, which is very cool, then your biggest thing, and this applies to recent grads as well, is you've got to move beyond the computer science core program. You've got to show that you know how to build in the core web or whatever stack you choose, actual applications. It takes most CS grads, computer science grads. Why do so many computer science grads do Codesmith? Because it takes them a good 6 months, 12 months on the job to become pro, to become people who can actually think as engineers, not theorists. So how do you hack that system? Well, you spend as much of your free time in your degree working on all the same things as we're saying. Go build developer tools. Go build a tool that lets developers visualize asynchronous function calls in Node. Oh my goodness. You're going to walk into any interview with that big bit there on Node and stand out from all the other hundreds of CS grads who did operating systems and who wrote some functions or some simulations in C. You're going to stand out so much. That'd be my advice to you, Mohammed. I hope that helps. All right. Okay. No problem, Matt. You touched on this briefly, but what general suggestions do you have for people seeking their first position? I know you mentioned tools, libraries over full-stack apps, but anything else? Medium-sized open source projects. Oh, you mean, Harry, do you mean contributing to existing open source projects? Well, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, of course, absolutely. But my concern with that is, damn, man, that's hard. It's totally, absolutely high value. Speaking at meetups, huge. I mean, there's all sorts of things on this. Let's try and actually pull up the slides from my own. Let me just pull up the slides. CodeSmith core lectures. Job search outreach messaging workshop. Here we go. So I think, yeah, here we go. Here are things that can drive inbound. So it's not quite your question, Harry, but things that will drive people towards you, because we went through a whole ton of things in terms of how to interview. We have a workshop in the core program at CodeSmith, where 2 workshops actually. One on how to tell your story. We didn't get a chance to cover that even here, which is the question of the first question in every interview is, give me a sense of your background and sort of what's led you here today. And if your answer does not give a sense of a true technical lineage, then you're in a bad place. If your answer comes across like, well, I just finished a coding bootcamp because I was really interested in coding, you're done. You're going to get a junior dev job at best ever. Instead, you've got to look at your lineage and go, well, I did a bunch of computer science and web development classes at undergrad. Loved it. Data structure, all in Python. It was wonderful. Now, then, in my role after graduating, I actually ended up going into, mostly my parents' pressure. Despite doing a bunch of this computer science and web stuff at undergrad, I actually ended up doing some legal work after graduating. But the whole time in that role, all I could be doing in my free time was experimenting and building with JavaScript. And actually, in my work, I started shoehorning it into my work, and I'd write all the, I wrote an interface to let me work with the database of different clients. I wrote a SQL database, actually Postgres, and I wrote kind of clean API endpoints to interact with it. And they didn't, care I was doing it, but it was very significant for me. And that actually culminated most recently. I just, I've taken it to its logical conclusion and built out this tool that developers are using really all over the country. Insert your production project here. Whatever it is that you build at CodeSmith or in your free time, the major project that stands out. I'm happy to go into that in more detail. This is how you say. I'm happy to go down that more detail if you're interested. So that's another major part of how you do your job search. You have to have that story down that gives you the lineage. Does not make you look like gold rush hunting bootcamp grad. It's very important. So that's another part. Another part is, how do you present your technical challenges? Do you present them with clarity and precision? All this, so many things. But just a list here. Speak at meetups. Add profiles on triplebytehard.com. Ask Hacker News who wants to be hired. Stack Overflow. Open source contributions, as Harry said. Write advanced blog posts. Elegant personal site. Seasoned engineer look, not bootcamp grad portfolio site style. That means if you go and look at any seasoned engineer's site, if you go, for example, like willsenders.com, you can see it's kind of low key. Not gold digging. No, like, that's, I don't think gold digging. I meant gold hunt. Gold rush hunting. There's a gold rush. There's a sort of software engineering gold rush right now, and there's a suspicion by seasoned engineers always of people, are they just hunting the gold rush? All right. If you went to like willsenders.com, you'll see it's very low key. And that's the style your site could be. What other things? Yeah, those are some of the things, Harry, that I hope can give you additional tools. Okay, questions in the chat. All right, hope that helped, Harry. Yeah, great, excellent. Is CodeSmith core good for people who are self-taught only? Yeah, I mean, that's why we have all the free workshops. So we have a workshop like this, because this is what helps people get to the level where they can get into CodeSmith. Yeah, like in the New York cohort, it's particularly selective. I would say half of the current junior cohort have been through prior coding boot camps, but half didn't. Do this. Somebody in there who started learning to code 6 months ago. No, it's totally about how much grit you show. And if someone's a hard parts regular, the weekly, Thursday evening JavaScript hard parts regular, man, we definitely make, because it's such an indicator of their commitment. There's a guy who didn't go to college, who never got a job. He was 27. Shout out Kyle, who attended hard parts in LA for 60 weeks. And he got in, and he didn't get in the first interview, he got in the second time. And in the end, man, I value the commitment he showed, the grit he showed. That's worth a lot. It's worth a lot to me. All right. What are some of the hardest parts that you see self-taught programmers struggle with? Oh, thinking that being an engineer is about technical knowledge. It is not just about technical knowledge. I know I'm harping on about this. When you start learning, everyone loves to watch videos because it's like, oh, wow. Well, they love to do code school. They love to do Egghead.io or frontend Mars. They watch myself in frontend Mars, like, I learned so much. Very nice. It's not real. In the end, you plateau and you feel like, well, I'm doing all this stuff, but I still don't know what it takes to be an actual professional software engineer. And all it takes is hitting blocks as you solve problems and navigating through them, even if it takes you 2 weeks to do so, endlessly, like 150 times, until you are so trained on hitting a block and navigating through it, both in terms of the skills to do so, but also just the confidence and the belief you will break through that block, that when you go into the job, being a software engineer is really just a map of the ecosystem. So I kind of know the go-to places and the go-to technologies, and I have some experience implementing them. But more than anything, the mentality and the skills that when I encounter a block, I can come out the other side. The next level is I can also help other people do so because my technical communication is so strong. And by the way, shout out to HR, Hat Reactor, for having the problem-solving piece. Absolutely, was in that, certainly San Francisco, a core part of their vision as well. The bit that you can then take beyond that, and the bit that helps people get consistently out of Codesmith mid-senior roles, is the technical communication. A mid-level developer can take any problem and any feature they're given to work on, and even if they haven't seen the content before, they can do it. A senior developer can take any feature and they can help others with them solve it, because they can take their own internal mental model and make it accessible to others. So that's what it is, Brian. They think it's all about knowledge. It ain't. That is a fifth of what makes an engineer. And that's why in the end, computer science grads who have no relevant skills are better at getting software engineering jobs typically than people who don't have, who are self-taught. Even the self-taught people have learned the right technologies, because it ain't about the right technologies. That's a fifth of what counts. All right. Marlon. Coming from other backgrounds, counting biology, anywhere plus or minus in the programming industry? I wouldn't say it's a plus. I would say it's a minus. I mean, I don't know, man. Totally fine. I think about, like, oh, fuck. So let me think of some people. Like Richard Tarr. Richard Tarr is now on, I wish I could say the salaries of people, because it's quite astonishing. He was doing accounting for 2 years, straight out of UCLA undergrad. Actually, it wasn't UCLA. I think it was UCSD or something. Accounting undergrad, 2 years of accounting, got into Codesmith along with a couple of other friends, and got an offer afterwards from Outlook, which is a division of Nordstrom. Now, the salary is low senior. He didn't have a senior title, but low senior. No prior experience. He did accounting. Biology. I think of, actually, you know what? I'm going to show you guys some slides that I always show people in the residents in the program, because even they get nervous about whether they can actually do this. I'm going to show you all. Here we go. That's showing up. No, let me just pull that up on screen share. There are people like you, and this is not for Codesmith. Ain't for Code. This is for people who are aspiring independent of Codesmith. Prior grads felt the same way. So I've got a bunch of examples. All of these people got over 100K, by the way. All have got over 100K. Technical degree, non-technical experience. There's biology, EMT, 2 years, software engineer, vertical maths. Physics, high school teacher, Google. Molecular biology lab researcher, so a non-technical lab researcher, CNN. What about me? I'm different. I got no technical degree and no technical experience. Don't worry. Philosophy Chinese, software engineer, Nike. Film, and then non-technical QA, senior software engineer, LA Times. Account manager, an anthropology major, backend engineer, Elated. We all know technical degree, technical experience feels easier. Yeah. What about me? I didn't go to college. No college, don't worry. Full stack at Narbox. No college, don't worry. Apple's ad team. Recent college grad, no experience. Don't worry. Anyway, point is to say, Marlon, you can aspire. You do not need to worry, but you just have to show the grit to get there. All right. That is, I think, all of our questions. Pleasure, man. All right. Anyone got any final questions before we wrap up? I hope the stores are open. Thanks, Jess. What kind of tea make? English breakfast tea. Always. My family brought me about 400 tea bags from the UK, and I have them always with me. All right. Thanks, everybody. Peace out. See you soon, folk. Jessica, you are an inspired person. Shout out to you as well. All right, folk. Peace out.